Hello YouTube and welcome back to another exciting Digital Magicians Character Animator character setup, part 2. This is going to be the character setup of the body that we're going to just add to the head. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of these videos. I've got 2 more parts left, I believe. And remember that subscribe button is free, and like the video if you like. Let's jump right into it. Now jumping in, we actually gonna name our body layer, start setting up all of our setups and shapes for the body. Just make sure our head layer is still all set. So now we'll start working on the neck. Now usually I always have a hard time figuring out if I'm gonna actually group the neck with the head or the body. It actually all depends on what you actually want to actually be grouped in front of your layers. Sometimes I actually want the hands to pass over the face and the neck, so that means the body layer would need to be in front. Sometimes you can actually set the arms up as a separate layer outside the head and the body so that the arms will always pass in front of the face and the body. There's some odd cases where you might want the hands, like I did in the last video, to pass in the back of the character. I actually use the cube for the body, of course the circle for the breast, and I actually just shape it in the form of how I want the body to go, and then I use another cube for the hips, and then I actually just shape that like I said before, like we use in a 3D design. We use a cube for the hips and kind of just scale it up to make the hip shape. And then I actually just merge that with the body. Now the waist and the hip area could be a little tricky. So usually I just take my time in this area and kind of shape the top area first, since the hip area is just confined in that one little shape that we set up at the beginning. And then once I'm sure what I'm working with, I actually merge it together. Just want to prep the arm area. You can actually work in symmetry, actually just working on one side of the body and then dividing it and then mirroring that over. But I actually felt that some of the changes is not too noticeable. And for the breast, actually, it's actually not a perfect circle, so we just want to shape those to actually fit the area and to actually look like the breast. Now we're going to start working on the arm. I actually use cubes, and then I scale them down as rectangles, and then I shape them from there. I want to round the edges so that it actually has a soft feel, and then the arms is not just a perfect tool. If you're going for a perfect tool, you can set that up. But for this character, it's more of a semi-stylized look. I actually sometimes leave the outlines around the actual vector shapes just as a guide so that I can actually see the edge of the shapes. And then once the shapes is complete, then I can actually take the actual outlines out so it merge the colors together. You want to pay attention to those little connection areas because in these areas, these are where the arms are going to bend. And you actually don't want to show any arcs or any areas that might show a crevice where the points intersect. So you just want to make it overlap enough so that when the arm needs to bend, it won't show some of those off details. Now I'm actually using a pentagon shape just for that little flail thing she had for her sleeves. And I'm actually just gonna make these separate shapes, so in Character Animator you'll see later we'll use the dangle tool to actually make these move. Now, in Animator, you want to cheat your ass off, even in character creation. If you actually do have other characters, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So I'm actually grabbing a hand from one of my other characters and just changing the color to match the character here. The point is reuse, reuse, reuse. You'll hear that a lot in animating and in character creation. Just reuse shapes and other things to actually take shortcuts. Now I'm actually going to create the lower waist and the dress area. This is going to be kind of weird, so I'm going to use a weird circle and I'm going to try to shape that to actually define the area around the thighs and then create a kind of veiled dress look at the bottom. When scaling, you just want to make sure that you have all of your layers visible and no layers locked, so when you select it, you won't have any layers left behind. So I simply cut the bottom off and now I create that bottom drape area for the dress. actually have all of the colors we're gonna need for the areas, and we can start setting up these layers and organizing things a bit to get the hierarchy pretty much perfect, and then we can mirror over the arms. We'll mirror it over as one potential group, with everything pretty much set up so we won't have to actually do anything over again, and then we'll just name it from the actual right arm to the left arm. Now the actual forearm layer, the master layer of the arm, you actually want to add that little plus in front, because that's actually going to be a layer that actually is going to move. We want to actually move the arm. So yeah, you definitely want to add that little plus right before the name, so that Character Animator can recognize this as an actual object that you want to animate. So if you actually didn't do any of this earlier, this is the time to try to get this nice and organized, because the character is mostly done. Well, mostly before we actually add details. But you definitely want to get this done before you start adding those added details, because you want to put those details in a proper layer so it don't actually misform your character when we move them over the Character Animator. So if you haven't already done this, this is definitely the best time to start sorting out these layers and making sure all of the items is pretty much in the right proper area. If you do need, definitely pause the video if you need to look at how I set this up. Yeah, you could actually get a good look at how we actually set these layers in groups. The master arm layers, and we can drag all of the arm pieces into those main arm areas. Just want to make sure we get these naming conventions correct. Yeah, if you're actually not too familiar with Illustrator, let me know in the comments below. I could actually make a in-depth Illustrator tutorial. I'm actually creating this video with the assumption some of you are pretty familiar with Illustrator, or at least Photoshop. These same principles are used in Photoshop with the layers and the naming conventions, the same thing. I just prefer to use Illustrator because of the vector, and it's actually kind of it's low scale because it actually doesn't use pixels. Okay, we're definitely ready to actually duplicate our arm and move it over. Like I said, we actually usually just hold down on the Mac, Shift and Alt, and we drag the layer down, and it actually creates a duplicate of our layer, and then we just mirror it over and drag it over to the other side. So there we have it. We have the character body set up with the head, and now we're ready to start detailing and then move it over to Character Animator. Like I said before, remember to subscribe so you won't miss those next videos. And like if you like, I'm out of here.